chasing rabbits, and you know you're going to fall.
Hello and welcome back, people. Welcome to Adventures with Truth. That's what's up. So let's start this episode by, discussing the things that we were talking about last time, and which was, I think, the truckers' protest. Now, it's not a burning hot issue that I want to pay my mind to, so I'll just, quickly just gloss over the issue, tell you what I think about it, what's the kind of truth that you should seek from this situation. So yeah, these trucking protest, hit and run, highway safety, road safety, and everything. See, basically, this new law that has, being proposed right now, the law essentially states that death by neglect should have a higher punishment than it currently does. If somebody is on the road and they are, following or not following the traffic rules, either way, and they are involved in an accident, and the other party, right, or any party who's maybe fatally wounded, they are in a critical situation, and if you just, run away from the situation without informing the authorities, without even responding to the, or rather, telling the first responders, be it police, ambulance, authorities nearby, that hey, so and so have been involved in an accident, there's somebody there, they're probably in their vehicle or not, and they are critically wounded. And if you fail to do so and the person happens to die, right? Because this death by neglect only comes into play if the person passes away. It would be extremely unfortunate. And to stop that, of course, you need law. You need harsher punishments, because one thing in India is that we have so many people, so many fucking people. I mean, it's good to have such a big population that we have, no shortage of people who are looking to work, no shortage of youth, at least not right now. What happens in this situation is it's a basic human tendency that we end up devaluing or neglecting the thing whichever that we have in abundance, right? You go to Rajasthan where they don't have a mass supply of waterish, of course, right? It's scarce in that region. So those people take water very seriously. You will not see those people wasting water. Now, if you go to a region, be it a coastal place or, the mountainous regions where water is usually not hard to come by, there are some glaciers, or in the case of coastal regions, there's plenty of water from the ocean. It's not drinkable, but some back channels, rain, plenty of rain there. So people don't value that resource as much. I mean, you should go and ask people in South Africa, how much do you value water? And they'll tell you, it's not good. It's not good. Having the constant threat looming over your head that, hey, we might actually run out of clean and drinking water or fresh water. You would understand how precious this resource is, right? I mean, Earth's surface is what? 60-70% water. Surface I'm talking about, not the planet as a whole. But most of the water is not, usable for our human purposes. We cannot drink it. We cannot do agriculture, irrigation with it. We cannot even, feed that or give that water to our cattle or whatever animals that we are farming. So that happens. Now, coming back to the population situation, since we have such a large population and everywhere you go there's so many people tend to devalue human being as a whole, because the human resource is in excess here. Which is why, one of the things that when you go to some remote places, be it mountains, deserts, where the terrain is hard and, there are not a lot of inhabitants in those regions, people tend to be more, you would say, generous. They are more willing to help each other because they understand, first of all, there's not a lot of humans in this place. And also, even if there were, the terrain itself is so hard that sooner or later you're going to need somebody else's help. So you're going to help them too. But when it comes to roads and you see so many vehicles, even whenever I'm driving, I'm just hoping that some of these cars just would get off the road. There's just so many traffic, especially the e-rickshaws and autos and all these shenanigans. Fucking take them off the road, man. They don't follow rules. They actually break every single traffic law to their convenience. So this thing is actually good, It's a good thing. Now, of course, people make the case that if the person is not able to flee the situation, or if they are, of course, caught by the mob in the local region, they might be lynched to death. And to that, I would want to say that let's not forget that on top of having this, new or harsher punishment on the case of road accidents or death by neglect, the laws for mob lynching are actually going higher too. Even those laws are getting severe punishment so that people have an incentive to not do it. Because now for the first time, death penalty is also included as a, I would say, punishment, a legal punishment for mob lynching. If somebody is a part of a mob and they happen to kill this so and so driver on the spot because of the accident they were involved in, even if it is their fault or not, the people in the mob might even be, given the death penalty. Now, of course, it's not so hard to do that. In case of a mob, it's, so difficult to basically pinpoint who is the main perpetrator. Because if there's 100 people in the mob, I don't think, you can give all of them the same punishment. Although you should, but it's not easy to track down such people or even to deliver punishments or legal judgments on such a large chunk of people. That would not be, welcomed on a societal level. So that's the case. And I do feel like there should be, stricter laws, because even in Delhi, this is the capital of the country. Everywhere you go, there's now cameras. Traffic police is just, hiding by the pavement. Sometimes I feel like these people are just lying down under the cars because they pop out of nowhere. And they're giving challans and fines to everybody. So a strict law punishment should be there, because even in such cases, even in Delhi, when you see there's so many police around, and well, of course, police are doing what police do. Sometimes they help the civilians in maintaining law and order, and sometimes they just want to fill their own pockets and they want to abuse the power and suppress the common man. And even in such situations, almost every day I see people driving on the wrong side. They're driving fast, not following speed limits, not following traffic signals and everything. So there shouldn't be, some kind of a fear in the population that doing these things where you are jeopardizing somebody else's life, you're risking their life, it's not the right thing to do. Who are you to play God with somebody else's life? And if your neglect happens to cause somebody permanent damage to their health, to their well-being, then you should be held accountable. Now, of course, the thing about law is the more and harder laws you have, the more people you need to enforce that, essentially the law, whichever the law may be in that particular situation, whichever situation or the section of Nyaya Sahita that is applicable in that situation. And once you have more people enforcing the law, more people who are wearing this uniform, which they think that gives them power, then very often you see that these people also, inherently get an incentive to abuse that power, because there are no checks and balances in those places. Rarely do you get to see that if somebody is doing a misconduct, especially in the police force and even in the other first responders, they are almost never given the right punishment. Rarely are they ever fired from their job or held accountable. Almost never do they go to jail for the crimes if they are applicable in that case. So while we make stricter laws, we should also, ensure that the standard of the people, the quality of the work that these people do who are trying to have the people uphold the law should also be higher. I mean, just talking about traffic situations, like I just recently, came across a video on the internet by this very popular YouTuber. And essentially, he was, going down the highway and he was stopped by the police, and they were trying to just hand out speeding tickets to everybody. They didn't even have a goddamn interceptor with them, right? And without an interceptor, you cannot actually measure the speed. And to that, these cops said, just हम तो देख के ही बता देते हैं स्पीड कितनी है. बेंचो तो फिर अपनी आंखों को लेके मूवी सेट पे चले जाओ. कैमरा ही तो है, right? Take your bloody eyes and maybe use that to shoot a movie. Because if you are saying that your eyes can do that, then might as well be able to record movies and situations just with your eye. Click on your eyeballs, and why don't we do that? Of course, these people, nobody's gonna come after these people, because it's only the common man that gets suppressed and pushed down. So yeah, that's what I think about this situation. While we make the laws harder for each side, right, for the people who are breaking the law and for the people who are helping them break the law, in that case we should also have a higher standard for the people who are enforcing that law itself. And if anybody is found in a situation where police officers or traffic police officers are breaking the law to their benefit and trying to essentially just extort money from the public, they too should be held accountable, and there should be severe punishments for that, including like a hefty fine, just to make sure that all the bribe that you have taken should be comes back to the government and hopefully be used for the benefit of the people. But I don't know, I don't see that happening. It is something that we should strive for, but it's maybe sometimes it feels like it's too much to expect, too much to expect, especially when you have such a large ship excuse me, such a large ship of about 1.5 billion sailors on this boat. Think about it. India is not a large ship. We don't have that much of a geographical region. Most of our geographical regions have been divided by people, by infighting among the people. Some of our regions have been taken and named as other countries. Hopefully we'll get them back someday. But until then, we should make sure that this huge boat that we have, this huge boat with huge people, should not end up like Titanic. Yeah, should not end up like Titanic, and rather it should end up like a profitable, smart, well-running cruise ship empire. It's not to say let's become a ruthless empire or a colonial empire, but we should have some sort of a perfect balance, and we should be careful about the things that we set in place, because people who are our adversaries or who have malintent, they are always going to be willing to push to the limits, find loopholes in these situations, or use these situations to their benefit. So that's that. Let's talk about something else. I've already taken about a quarter of the show talking about this dead horse issue. Even Supreme Court, I think, is trying to get even a higher compensation included in the legal framework for hit and run cases. And if you're gonna do that, then I think we should also make mandatory for car manufacturers or automobile manufacturers to include a dash cam in their vehicles. No car that is being sold today on the market should not have a dash cam. Now, I cannot blame the people for not having such, devices, dash cams and everything in their vehicle after fitted. Because you just cannot expect everybody to spend 10-15,000 extra after they have already spent and stretched out their budgets buying that car they want, they need, or they desire, whichever way that is. But see, that's the thing about mandates. Like, especially in, I would say, country which is as diverse as India, getting anything done is just so difficult. People often just talk about it. Oh, it's unity and diversity. We have so many cultures, but what I feel like is that diversity often causes more problems than it solves. Of course, the thing about diversity is that it makes way for new ideas. The more different mindsets, people from different cultures, backgrounds you have, the more diverse ideas you're going to have. But the problem is that these fringe ideas or ideas from small sections might not be applicable to such a diverse population whose sum comes out to be over 1.5 billion. That's crazy. 150 crore. Holy shit, man. That's a that's a big population to control. And that's the thing. Even about if you see about the things that are going on the corporate culture around the world, these mega corporations, which are usually doing more harm than good, to name BlackRock and Vanguard and everything, they are trying to just force down diversity down everybody's throat without even, considering the merit of the people. Now, let me give you an example for that. Right? You might be aware about, all the diversification and inclusion strategies that are going on in the world. People are just trying to, you know, give opportunities. Well, they're trying to portray that they are giving opportunities to the minorities or the people who don't have a loud voice or a representative. But what something that they are forgetting is that merit is the only thing that one should be judged upon, and having an forced inclusivity rather, is always going to be a problem. Now think about it, like even in India, we have these quotas for scheduled tribes, scheduled castes, OBCs and other minorities. But giving them a lower standard of merit is not actually serving us in any way. It's not even helping the population. Now, for instance, the qualifying marks for different exams, be it UPSC, AIMS, medical examinations, engineering exams, the ones you have to clear to get into college, these people have a quota, right? But the problem is that if you allow somebody with less intellect or maybe not as hardworking person who are not scoring or have the awareness or knowledge on a particular topic, then these people, while of course I understand they need some helping hand, but they are not actually helping the situation itself. If somebody who does not get enough marks to qualify for exam and you lower the standard for them, then essentially what you're doing is you're allowing incompetent people to join the workforce. It could be the corporate workforce, it could be the medical workforce, infrastructure workforce, any kind of thing. Now, would you think about yourself? Would you want to go to a doctor who actually, scored high enough marks to qualify for the exam and to get into that college, and then they graduated from that college with a gold medal or topping the university? Or would you rather go to a doctor who just, happened to get the degree because they belong to some particular oppressed or rather SC, OBC category, and they had not scored the marks, they had not studied as well as the other people? Somebody who is not as qualified to be in that situation where you are dealing or treating human lives. Would you want to go to a doctor who is not as competent as the other one just because they happen to graduate from the university only because they were given a lower standard to qualify? I wouldn't want to go to that doctor, man. And similarly, if you think about it, let me give you another example. Recently, I just came across that in America, the FAA, which is their Federal Aviation Association something, they're basically trying to force airline companies to include people with, less, I shouldn't say less, but people who are severely challenged in some ways. Now, having a Mental disability, of course, is not the right thing, and as a species, as a society, we should give them the tools that they need to succeed in life. But if you're ensuring that, just to make sure that we have diverse people and we are helping these people, just forcing companies to hire people who are not qualified to fucking fly metal tubes into the sky, is that a good idea? Somebody who has a mental disability, a learning disability, maybe they are autistic, maybe they're, what do you say, special needs people, they do not think things through the way somebody else with a without that disability might, then you are essentially basically putting everybody else's life on the line. Would you wanna fly in a plane knowing that your pilot is somewhat mentally compromised, they have a difficulty or a problem in learning or in quick decision making, especially in high stake environments like flying through the sky? Would you want to do that? This forced diversification without merit seems like the downfall. It seems like the downfall of society right now. Somebody is flying through the sky and suddenly the plane happens to hit a bird, or a bird gets sucked into the engine and there's fire in the engine when you are 20,000, 30,000 feet in the sky. Or do you want diversity at that point, or do you want meritocracy? Do you want the pilot to be there just because they happen to be from an oppressed part of the society, or do you want a person who has the maximum amount of qualifications to deal with that situation when you have to make quick decisions and the life is on the line, life is of the people on the line? What would you do then? Think about a doctor or a surgeon. Maybe they're autistic, or maybe they have special needs, they have learning disabilities, and maybe their brain is not working to the best of their ability due to some physical or mental handicap. Would you want yourself to be operated by such a person? Of course not. So what you end up doing is, rather, instead of having these people do better in life, they'll end up doing worse, because as a result people will not only lose faith in the institutions, but even a single case where somebody is given injustice, or somebody's treatment falls to the array just because the doctor or the pilot was not qualified, it's not actually gonna help the society in any way. It's rather gonna decrease the amount of trust that the common people have, and that's just a short way to anarchy. If you don't trust any doctor, then you won't be willing to go to doctors, and consequently sooner or later the health of the masses will go down, because people will lose faith in medical institutions. Same with the pilots, right? I mean, like, aviation threats, terrorism is already such a big problem, and on top of that you add unqualified people with no merits operating these huge machines where you're also responsible for hundreds of other lives. That's not a good recipe. That's rather a recipe for disaster. And that's what I think, right, about the diversity in this country too. I mean, it's good. It gives us so much flavor, right? We have these beautiful cuisines, beautiful cultures, all things that, come from different places, all these different religions, people with different faiths, ideas, and beliefs. While, of course, they are, somewhat important. But having to forcefully induct these people in any kind of the unit, be it the task force, be it the medical force, or you're just general average Joe who's just working in a company, working at a small business, we just cannot let merit go out the way. And that's what something I also think about, or rather feel about, these quota systems. Recently I just came across a case of this Indian child. This was a very smart Indian girl. I don't think she's even a teenager right now. She's like, maybe she is a teenager somewhere around 12 to 15 years of age. And this child apparently she has a very high IQ. and the way her brain works, her problem solving ability is just something which is, something you don't get to see a lot in the common folks. Now, of course, the student being that smart, they shouldn't have to, qualify and give every exam in the schools the way we have the school and education system set up in this country. You cannot let these people be forced to take every single exam, pass every single exam, even though they're already ahead of the curve. Somebody who might be, 12 years of age, which mathematically I think they should be in what, 6th standard, 7th standard. But if they have the brain and the intellect and they have consumed enough knowledge to actually outsmart a 12th grader or somebody who is in college, then just because they have not crossed these exams should not be to their detriment. And that this particular child that I'm talking about, I think the MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology that's in Boston in America, I think they gave her an admission. They were like, hey, can you pass this test? And the way their tests are in America and other lot of Western countries, so they have like a SAT system or a grade system. If you can pass this exam, no matter what your age is, no matter what your qualification, if you can pass this exam, then the merit of this result on the passing of this exam is what you're going to be judged upon. And if you can pass it, then more power to you. It doesn't matter your age. If you're smart enough, then you can join this institution. But if this child wanted to go to IITs in India, well, they cannot go there. Why? Because she has not qualified, or rather passed all the exams. She's not of age yet. First she'd have to, clear all the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th board, then 11th and 12th board, and then she'd have to give the IIT JEE, AIEEEs and all those exams to even be, included in that institution. But since we are so strict upon the stupid rules that we have, she was not qualified to enter the IIT. So of course, and people in MIT were smart enough to realize that if this person has the intellect, the knowledge and the thinking capacity to outshine other people at such a young age, then who are we to, take this opportunity away from her? We'll welcome you to our society, our culture, our colleges, and you can learn all the education, study whatever you want here. And if you study here, of course, right, you're gonna probably look for a job in that situation, because when it comes to jobs, and for instance, even Indian companies, they just ask for how much did you score in 12th? How much did you score in your college? I'm like, motherfucker, fuck those degrees. I'm sitting here right now in front of you, giving an interview. Why don't you judge me on based on my knowledge? Why do you keep looking for this paperwork? What's with this paperwork? So these are the situations that, plague our country. And people are quick to say, oh, there's a brain drain problem in this country. Smart people are leaving this country. Yeah, but is it really a brain drain problem? Or is it a problem with our perceptions of the things that we judge people? Or the criteria that we have set up to manage these talents and new and upcoming talent? So it's not actually a brain drain problem. I think it's an opportunity problem. If somebody has the intellect or the capacity to outshine others, but you're not even giving them a chance just because they don't have the stupid paperwork, are they liable to stick here and just destroy their life, or rather waste years on their life without getting the opportunities that they deserve? Of course not. They should actually find the best opportunity that they can get around the world and then explore that opportunity. So yeah, quota systems and forced diversification, forced inclusion, they are just actually to a detriment of the society. How do you create a society which is strong, capable, and growing when you're not even, willing to look at the merit of the people? Rather, you just want to make sure they have all the paperwork. Think about that. This paperwork situation in India it has been plaguing our country for such a long time. Even before independence, right? This fucking paperwork. And you've seen it, in movies, in Bollywood. A lot of people have tried to address this problem. For instance, if you are, aware about this infamous film, not infamous, but it's a classic. And the film is Munna Bhai MBBS. And the guy, right, Sanjay Dutt playing Murlidhar Sharma, he raised a very valid question. If somebody's fucking dying in the lobby of a hospital, are they supposed to first fill out the fucking paperwork? The fucking paperwork? Or should you first save their lives, make sure they're out of trouble, they're out of critical danger, and then you should, sort out all these things. How did you come into this situation? What can you do to get out of this situation? How are you going to pay back the medical bills that you have? But that should all come secondary. I mean, I've seen cases and read about cases where just because the person was involved in a accident or a shooting and they had a bullet hole in their body. But since bullet hole is, related to violent crime, unless you have a police inspector present there, or unless you have a FIR, a copy or a FIR with you right there while you are bleeding, and there's a fucking hole inside your body, hospitals just refuse to treat these patients. And what happens then? Well, the person will lose their life, and you don't know what this person could have done. Maybe they could have built another hospital. Maybe they could have cured cancer. Maybe they would have, be a philosopher, be a musician, be such a valued asset to society. But the paperwork, this thing is just, it's just eating the roots of Indian institutions like a fucking termite. Yeah. And then you blame the people who go elsewhere to seek better opportunities, better living standards, better even societal things and acceptances. Because I think society does play a crucial role in this. But it doesn't matter what the management say, but if the doctor in charge is willing to, go against the management and save somebody's life, then he should not be held accountable for not following protocol. Because a doctor's protocol is to fucking save lives and not just to make sure that they have all the paperwork in their place. Which is also, the argument sometimes poor people or less fortunate people make. Like, we don't have all the documents that you need, or all the documents that government has made mandatory or the hospitals have made mandatory that you need to be treated. But who's complaining? Apparently, I'm the only one who's complaining, or I'm the only one who's even seeing these things. So yeah, that's that. All right. Now let's talk about something else. Recently, I don't know how many of you have heard that there's a lot of anarchy that's going on in the Chinese military. The leader of the Communist Party, which is Xi Jinping, Winnie the Pooh Bear, somebody calls him, because he looks like a cartoon. I'm not saying that. Some people say that. And what happened is that, on top of firing all the opposition and all the leaders, which might, question him or stand in his way, he's just starting to discover that the extent of corruption that is happening in China, especially in the military. Recently, that news came out from, I think, Bloomberg, and they revealed that some of the Chinese missiles, right, surface-to-air missiles or surface-to-surface missiles, instead of having fuel in those missiles, they have water. Yeah, there's no fuel in those missiles. I don't even want to talk about the explosives and the bombs that are loaded on these missiles. They don't even have the fuel to get off the fucking land. You cannot even launch them because, of course, they're filled with water. And a bunch of Chinese former military officials who have since fled to America, they have even revealed that, we used to just take out rocket fuel and fuels from the missile to make Chinese traditional hot pots. Cook food because, of course, it burns cleaner, it's green, it doesn't give a nasty smell or a taste to the food that you're cooking on. So they said, we'd very often just take out the fuel from the missiles, fill it with water, and use the fuel for cooking purposes. Fucking cooking purposes, man. Not even to, use this highly potent fuel for driving cars or putting into other large industrial machines. Now we're just making food. Think about it. And that raises the question that is China a paper tiger? Now, some people might be aware that most of the things that China does are all for show. That's what they're good at, creating facades. I mean, you can see that in the Chinese products too. The Chinese products mostly look cool. They apparently have a lot of gimmicks compared to other competitors, but it doesn't last as long because the quality isn't there. A part of it is, of course, corruption, but it also reflects that the society itself doesn't, take pride in the things that they are creating, be it the infrastructure, the products, semiconductors, electronics, automobiles, and everything. Even like there's a company in China which makes EVs, electric vehicles, which is BYD. Build your own dreams, build your dreams. Stupid name, stupid people in stupid country, but apparently they have now taken over Tesla to be the largest manufacturer in the world. But if you follow Chinese news, it's very common to see electric vehicles by this company to just randomly catch fire. The batteries on these cars are just, not properly manufactured. There's not safety protocols in the place to make sure that these kind of accidents don't happen. And while it is one of the biggest, or rather the biggest EV manufacturer in the world right now, their cars is just spontaneously combusting, sitting there and catches fire. Now, somebody who's not a fan of EVs at all does, in a way, it makes me happy that people are starting to realize that EVs might not be the solution. Speaking of Tesla, right? Tesla is planning to invest about $1 or $2 billion in India to make their, new factories. But what some people might not be aware is that the sales of EVs, and especially Teslas, is going down across the world. Cars are just sitting in stockpiles at the showrooms and people are not, buying it. The demand of EVs have not increased to a place where other people were expecting or anticipating it to be. So they made huge investments and now they're paying for the price. Because you see, there's only so much limit that, even the government agencies can force people to do it. Especially in developed and free countries like America or Europe. People who wanted to buy EVs have already bought one and now they're not interested in buying another one. Maybe their experience was not good. Maybe the technology isn't there. So these companies are failing outside and now they want to come to India because they see that the government is unethically forcing people to adopt EVs. They're just banning diesel and petrol vehicles right, left, and center without even taking into account that the actual kind of damage that you're going to do to that environment. Yeah, because they are aware that especially in America, for example, people can actually have some consumer rights, but the consumer rights in India seem to be going down. The government is, of course, trying to make campaigns. Jago grahak jago. Jagruk bano. Satark raho. But when somebody's vehicle is just sitting in a parking lot and it may be 10 or 15 years old and the police show up and they just confiscate their vehicle without even telling them and they scrap their vehicle. And think about that person. What about their consumer rights? Who the fuck is the government to tell us how should you use your product? Think about it if 5 to 10 years down the line the government comes out with a rule that you cannot use your smartphones more than 5 or 2 years. You paid for that thing. The thing is already exists. Now you should be the person who decides as the owner of this particular product how long do you want to use it for? How long do you want to use it for? Think about it, the laptop I have in front of me right now, it's a 2015 model. So should government come in here and tell me that this is the old laptop, it might not meet the criteria of all the securities, all the safety patches in the cyber world, and they should be able to take it away against my wishes? It's a massive infringement on consumer rights. And that's the hypocrisy that you see in the government. It's not even, something that is fixed to the current government. It's not about BJP or Congress or Aam Aadmi Party or whatever. It's it's not something new. People are just not aware. You know, people do not raise questions, or the culture as a whole is not encouraged to raise questions. You ask them, and asking questions is something which is, taken out, or rather beaten out of people at a very young age. Coming back to the education system, if a child is asking too many questions or trying to discover new ideas in the education system, then they are, of course, punished for it. Teachers often, most teachers, I would not say all, they discourage such students in, asking or questioning the authority. And that makes you wonder, if you cannot question the authority, if you cannot even, criticize Supreme Court's verdicts or government policy and procedures, and if you dare to do that, then they'll just fucking hold you in contempt. You question any decision by Supreme Court and you might be held for contempt of court. And then they tell me how we are the largest democracy, power to the people. Sounds like a propaganda, because the common man is just losing more and more liberties and powers to the government, all in the name of rules and regulations. So is this actually a free country? I mean, I understand that there are no other countries or colonial powers that are ruling this country, but when you get down to the level, are people even free? The government itself is taking away consumer rights and people's right to live their life the way they want to. And the biggest thing in these regulations is that even when it comes to victimless crimes, right? Those people, like, victimless crimes should not be crimes. They should be completely decriminalized. If I'm not hurting anybody, right? Who are you to tell me that I'm not allowed to do it? Think about it. If I'm not hurting anybody, then what is the law doing there? The purpose of law is to, safeguard the people, have a moral and a legal framework to ensure, or rather to dictate, that these are things which are allowed, these are things which are not allowed, and how we should, go about them. Now, of course, that's not to say that you have to ask the population with every rule or regulation that you're going to make, because, of course, as I said, being so diverse, people might not even be aware about the long run consequences of some of the actions that the government take. But in some cases, especially in, victimless crimes, somebody is driving an old car, somebody is smoking a cigarette in a public place, even though there are no kids around, there are no adults around, but he can be, given a ticket. It's a victimless crime. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm just, using my civil liberties to live my life in a certain way. Who are you to tell me that I cannot do that? Is this a, I would say, an autocratic regime? Are we going towards China? Is that the direction we want to take? I mean, even in China, once you, buy a particular product, you can use it for as long as you want. Be it Europe, there's no such stupid laws, and government just keeps doing it. On top of that, yesterday I was just going through the news on my phone, and I realized once again the government has put grab 3 restrictions in Delhi NCR, which is essentially banning all the non-essential construction work, banning BS4 diesel vehicles, BS3 petrol vehicles, and even at this point, like, a BS4 diesel vehicle is just 4 years old. So are you telling me that I cannot use a product only 4 years after it? I mean, people's EMI might not be still over. They might still be paying installments on that vehicle, and the government can just come and confiscate it. Motherfucker, it just boils my blood to the point I cannot even tell you. And that's the thing, like, on a societal, or rather a psychological level, what these things do is that they take away aspirations from people, right? Because even in India, you see that, there's a massive part of the population who are actually car enthusiasts, right? People would like to get rich and affluent someday, not for buying, big jets, buying a big mansion, traveling everywhere, but somebody might just wanna buy a new car or a fancy car, a sports car. But of course, they're not allowed to now because they don't know how long will they even be useful for. And it might not seem like a big deal, but I actually firmly believe that, it affects the aspirations of the people. And if people do not find things that they can aspire to, or the things that they aspire to are not within their reach or access, then people are not, inclined to give their best. And if people don't give their best, then coming back to meritocracy goes down. I mean, think about it. If I don't have an incentive, like I am a car enthusiast, right? And if I see that no matter how much money I make, I cannot, buy a certain vehicle. I cannot even buy a vintage car. Cars which have gone up in value, they might be worth millions right now. And even if I happen to be a billionaire, I cannot just buy that vehicle and run it, even if it is in pristine condition. Why? Because the government told me so. This governmental interference it speaks about the country as a whole. The entire country has become a mama's boy. And unfortunately, we don't have a good mama. We don't have a good mother figure or father figure. Father of nation was not as great as some might have you believe. And the current government, which is supposed to be acting like a stepmother, is fucking over the children. And on a metaphorical level, it might not sound too similar, but think about it. The children or people who are not having the best upbringing due to their guardian or step parents, and they are, under the guidance of a non-ideal human being or a human being which does not have their best interest in mind, what are they gonna do? Will it not hamper their development, be it psychological, mental? Think about it. Just give that a thought. Give that a thought, people. Think about it. And before I wrap this up, let's talk about the burning issue, something that is going on everywhere, which is the Ram Mandir discussion that's going on, right? Everybody knows that Ram Mandir ought to be, or rather, supposed to be inaugurated in January 22, which is about 6 days from now. Today is January 16th. And that's good. That's great. But again, if you think things through, if you stop and, judge or analyze the situation for a second, you will start to see the flaws in this argument. And I'm not talking about the argument about the temple itself, right? I wholeheartedly believe that Hindus and Hinduism has been essentially getting fucked over by other minorities for a long time now. The temples, cultures have been demolished, absolutely pillaged by the powers and radical people that be who would, support their agenda. So it's all great, making Ram Mandir. And of course, there should be a huge mandir in Ayodhya. That's the birthplace of Raja Ram, right? I support that. But what I find problematic is that, first of all, for about at least a week, I've been seeing that every single fucking news channel is only talking about Ram Mandir. As if that's the only, or rather, that's the biggest thing that's going on in the country. And day after day, hour after hour, that's the only thing anybody is talking about. And of course, it is a big issue, but is it an issue that every single media outlet should be talking about it 24/7 for weeks on end, for months on end? Why is nobody discussing about the problems that I mentioned about this young girl with high IQ who's essentially forced by this, culture to go elsewhere and seek better opportunities overseas? Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about these things that I'm talking about. Seems like it's all just, propaganda. And I even heard about, some cases that these car sevaks who were shot, essentially they were massacred 20 years ago when Mulayam Singh was running the UP. And people are just, saying that, oh, their families are feeling good that the people who lost their lives, finally their dreams are coming to fruition. And yet nobody is talking about that if this former minister gave these orders and these policemen essentially put their weapons inside the mouth of these just activists and protesters who were just trying to get a temple made in the place where there should be a temple, and they were just shot point blank in their heads. They were essentially massacred. But nobody's trying to, hold these people guilty. Everybody's just happy with the fact that, oh, their dreams are coming to reality. But their dreams are coming to reality, but are you serving them justice? No, you are not. Of course not. The policemen who killed these people are probably roaming free. They might even be in a higher position in the armed forces or in the police force in the Delhi. The minister who ordered these things is still roaming free. His son is roaming free, doing same kind of tactics to just hold their power. Now, if you talk about Ram Mandir, these are also the things we should talk about. But no, people are not happy about that. People just want to talk, oh, so and so lost their life to get this temple built. And we have named a part of the temple in them. I think like Setharam, Udyog or Bhavan or some places, dedicated to the person Setharam, who apparently was shot in the mouth by the police. Now it's okay to continue this man's legacy. But actually, to serve justice to this man, you should actually hold the people accountable and put them in jail, if not give them the death sentence. Yeah, just because this person was happy to sacrifice their life for their religious beliefs does not mean that law should be happy with it. The law should not be happy with their religious beliefs, because law has to serve justice. And that's the thing I talk about. Like, every day everybody's talking about, yeah, Ram Mandir this, Ram Mandir that. People are finally getting, what they wanted, but they are not getting justice. So what the fuck are you even talking about? All these, Times Nows and News 18s and Aaj Taks and all the news anchors, they're sending their teams to the, families of these victims. But nobody is doing an investigation that who were actually the people who carried out these decisions on the land. Who were the people who gave out the orders to essentially cause a massacre? Who's holding them accountable? Are they going to jail? Are they getting, a life in prison? Or anything like that? Are they even given a fucking financial ticket or a, punishment? Are they given a fine? No. But in the name of religion, people are just happy with how they died, but they died for a cause. And now their cause is coming to reality. Their dream is coming to reality. And that's all they should be happy about. I don't think so. And that's the thing about religion, That's my beef with religion. I have a personal beef with every religion. Let's make it clear. Now, of course, people have the, freedom, or they should have the freedom to follow whichever religion or belief, faith that they want to associate with, or they were born in and they follow as a part of their family heritage and lineage. But, religion, the thing about religion is that it often clouds people's judgment to think things logically. Because it is just an emotional argument, that our family member, they were essentially butchered in the streets by these so-called policemen. And that brings me back to the argument, that these policemen just because they are wearing a particular uniform, they start to think that they're above anybody else. And law supports that. Yeah, that's a big problem. Now, if the people who were, who were shooting these innocent people, if they were actually, had any kind of fear in their mind that we might be held accountable at some point, or these people, if they raise their hands against the police, then they will not be, given the same kind of sentence, because at the end they are defending themselves. And people have a right to defend themselves, even if it is against the government, even if it is against the police force. They have a right to defend themselves, especially when they're not committing any crime. But again, the power structures, the struggles of the common man, nobody's talking about it. The media found a reason or found a perfect time to preach about the propaganda of Hinduism, and they are just running with it. They're running like a maniac. They're not even running gracefully like a tiger or a peacock. They're running like a they're running like that guy that used to run in GTA Vice City. Have you played that game? I mean, this man could shoot down helicopters, drive any cars, and when it comes to running, he would run like a fucking idiot. Somebody who has, just come out of wheelchair. They don't even have the full function of their limbs. It would run like stupid. That there would not be any kind of coordination, not much sense into it, not following the physics or the biologies, not even running the way our biological anatomy is based in. And that's the same thing with media today. I've seen that, so-called, I don't know, some people call it Godi media, Modi media, some people have their Congress medias and everything. But everybody is just, looking for the right opportunity to serve themselves. If you are actually doing journalism, then you should also raise these concerns and make sure these things don't happen. I mean, similarly, like if you think about it, I just recently came across this news that there's a university in Indonesia, or rather a university which is located near a mosque, and that mosque is once again built upon the foundations of a Hindu temple. But if you go there, I don't think people are fighting over there about this topic. Should that, of course, the thing should be unearthed? Maybe. But should we fight over it? Should people be massacred over it? Of course not. But who's going to talk about it? Not your mainstream journalism, or rather the corporate media, corporate news outlets and all these things. Who's going to mention that? I don't think anybody is. Nobody is. Nobody is talking about these things because, well, first I feel they do not even have the perspective or the intellect to gather all this information and then think it through their own lens. Just, given whichever source that they have of their information and whichever incentives that they want to serve, whichever the people that they want to help spread this information, they're just doing their jobs instead of doing the things that they're supposed to do. Which essentially, also brings me back to the point that even the media has lost meritocracy. We don't see, or people in general, doesn't matter what religion people believe to, they just, follow news outlets and these news channels on television or print media, just subscribing to their ideologies instead of seeing that who is actually talking facts and who's raising the right kind of issues and concerns on around any particular topic. The death of meritocracy is the death of progress. It is the death of growth. And it seems like that we are headed towards that future. Sure, like India is destined to be one of the largest economies, probably we're even gonna overtake America or China in next 50 years. People say it. I'm not so easily convinced by that. We still have some challenges ahead of us. But you see, becoming an economic superpower doesn't actually, do much if people are not given the right tools how to think things. When educational institutes are falling apart, people don't have an trust in those nations, and the people who have trust, then those trusts are just based on their tribalism associations with one party or the another, instead of choosing or seeing who's, instead of seeing that you are associated with this religion or you are doing or serving the issues that we want, we should actually look what is the truth on the matter and how we should deal with a particular situation. How should we even think about anything? That's what something that we need to, first learn as a country before we become or have the aspirations to be one of the largest superpowers in the world. Because having a big economy doesn't actually do much when the per head capita income of the people is not great. Think about it. I would say even half the country still dreams of, getting the basic amenities in their lives. Most people can only buy a 15-year-old vehicle. But hey, the stepmother, that is the government, tells him, no, you're not allowed to do this. You have no right to get out of this particular situation unless you do it the way we want to. So that's something you should think about, And that's the thing about, democracy. Usually having a counter opinion or a balance to raise concerns against the ruling party is the job is to essentially, raise these issues and concerns in the flaws in the thinking or the practices that one party may be doing. But what happens when both parties have a particular interest to serve themselves and people are not even aware of the situations or the big picture that is going on? Think about it, like for Ram Mandir, people are saying that, this is the new Diwali. Well, what the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you idiots talking about? Are you trying to change history? Because last time I checked, Diwali is to be celebrated on the Amavas of the Kartik Maas. Kartik Maas ke Amavasya ko Diwali aati hai. That's when, allegedly, Raja Ram came back from his exile. And just because, you are making yet another temple in his birthplace does not mean that you can change rehistory or rebrand actually the one of the biggest festivals of Hindus. And funny enough, Hindus are the ones doing it and stupid Hindus are the ones who are supporting this idea. I'm all for the temple and building all this, cultural landmarks, but nobody's talking that it's not Diwali, dude. It's not Diwali. You're in the middle of January. The closest national thing you have there is Republic Day. Maybe you should associate something with that, We should say something that, our republic, our country, where we are supposed to give power to the public, which we rarely do. Of course, people would not want to do that. Why would government want to do or give power to the people? Why would anybody want to give that? I don't remember a single thing or a single case in history where the ones in power have relinquished their power. Rather, what you would want to do is, use your own propaganda to make people think that we are serving their desires and needs without actually, giving them the tools to think about what is actually going on and how this may or may not affect them. So yeah, celebrate the Ram Mandir, the building of Ram Mandir. Remember the sacrifices the people made, but one must not remember that justice is not being served here. The only thing that is being served here is a propaganda. It's a propaganda. And even the people who are, actually trying to raise these concerns, they are being banished out from their own communities. They are being called Uncle Sams, traitors, tyrants and everything, without actually even understanding that the point they are trying to make. And once again, celebrate the inauguration of Ram Mandir, but do not forget or do not overlook the propaganda or the subtle undertones of incentives that these people might be using. Must not forget that above fulfilling of dreams, you have something which has even higher priority, I would say. And that's the liberties of the people. The freedom to be. The freedom to live your life as you want to and to ensure that justice is served. Making a temple will not serve justice. It might bring some peace to those people or their families, but it's not justice, it's compensation. And coming back to the truckers' protest, that's what the law is trying to do. It's trying to increase the compensation and not bring justice to the people. I hope you like this adventure with truth, people. I hope you are not too offended. And if you are, go eat a dick. And on that note, I'll wrap this up. I'll see you next time. We'll talk about the country's psychological problem, that is to be a mama's boy. And we'll make a kick-ass episode, talk about things that you might have or might not have heard about. And on that note, I'll leave you be. See you next time, people. Stay smart, stay wise.
Just